All right, everybody, welcome back to Combat Performance Systems. Today we are going to be talking about periodization. All right, if you're an athlete, you really need to understand this. And if you're a coach, you should definitely already understand this. And if not, that's okay. You can start to implement it right away. Okay, so periodization is going to be looking at our overall athletic performance and development through our competition season. So, for example, let's say that I have a tournament or multiple competitions in a year. Okay, I have one in March, I have one in June, I have one in October, I have one in December. Okay, my periodization, I want to be looking at all of those tournaments throughout the year to make sure that my training is lining up so that I am at peak performance when I am about to compete. Okay, so we can break this down into 3 cycles. We have our macro cycle, our meso cycle, and our micro cycle. Okay, our macro cycle is going to be looking at the entire year. So for example, I have that tournament in March, June, October, and December. So I'm looking at that throughout the whole entire year to make sure that I'm periodizing my training to maximize my peak performance at competition times. Okay, so a very simple example is if my competition is in March, in January is when I'm going to be doing my progressive overload. I'm going to be maximizing my force and my power and really just trying to work on my conditioning and maxing out my body. As I get closer to the tournament, I'm going to be dialing that back a little bit to make sure that my conditioning is peak. However, I don't need to be doing super heavy lifts or anything like that where I'm exhausting my body, right? I want to build my body up in the beginning and then, kind of maintain that peak performance until I get to the end. So not only does periodization and our macro cycle work on a physical training aspect, but also our mental training as well. Okay, so we have our macro cycle. Macro cycle is looking at the entire competition season and periodizing our workouts and our training to meet that for our specific competition. Next, we have our mesocycle. So the mesocycle is basically if I'm breaking it up into those chunks from March to June to October to December, okay, I want to have my mesocycle being like 2 to 6 weeks. How am I going to train progressive overload in the beginning and then maximize my potential throughout the rest of that training? Okay, so that way I can break down my cycles, my macro cycle, into mesocycles. Then I can take it even one step further and get into those microcycles. So the microcycle is where I'm going to be looking at the week. What am I doing for this week? Okay, so I can break my microcycles or my macrocycles into mesocycles, then my mesocycles into microcycles. All right. So this is just a brief overview of that. If this is something that's interesting to you, definitely subscribe, like and subscribe. Make sure you check out more videos. We're going to be talking about this more. And also we're going to have opportunities where you can schedule one-on-one consultations with me and we can start to talk about this more. So athletes, if you're not doing this, you need to start. Okay, if your coach isn't having you do this, bring it up to them. Okay, one thing I just want to touch on real quick right here is communication between athlete and coach. You need to have an open communication and say, hey, this isn't working for me, or this is working for me, or what do you think about this? Okay, if you bring this up to your coach and they say, no, we're not going to do that, well, then maybe it's time to find a new coach, all right? I am not throwing any shade at any coaches out there. I think everyone is doing a great job. However, I see a lot of different things going on, and that's what Combat Performance Systems is for, is to create systems for your athlete. Systems as a coach, how to develop an athlete, systems for the athlete, how to develop yourself into the highest athletic performance that you can. Okay, you have to break it down into systems. It's not just something where you throw it at the wind and figure it out as you go. All right, we want sport-specific training, we want periodization, we want macrocycles, mesocycles, progressive overload. There's so many different things that go into this, plus our mental training, plus our skill training, right? All of those things. So anyway, back to the communication point. You need to have open dialogue with your coach, and back, same for the coach to the athlete. Hey, how are you feeling? How's your body recovering, right? We want recovery is an important part of our training. So be sure, bring this up with your coach if you're not doing it already, and start to create a system for your periodization and start implementing these cycles immediately. Okay, if this is something you're curious about, feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat and see how we can help you achieve maximum results.